Hi, welcome back to another Crypto Dave video. Now this afternoon I'm going to be showing you how to set up a Vulcano Masternode. So before we get started, there will be a few things that you need before you get going. You will need a Vulcano wallet, so you can get that from the site here. I'll put all the links to everything I'm referencing here below, but Vulcano.io is the website. You can grab the wallet by just clicking on the wallet tab. You need to then download whichever wallet it is for your system, so Mac, Windows, Linux, whatever you want. So this is the wallet that goes onto your local system. This is what you'll be using to control your Masternode from. And then you will also need a VPS. Now I'm using Vultr. I've found them pretty good. All my Masternodes for my Masternodes shootout series is held on this same Vultr account, so I will be setting up a VPS with Vultr, but there are lots of other providers available. You've got stuff like DigitalOcean, many others, and then I will be using basically the guide here. So this is on the knowledge base on the Vulcano site, but I'll just be running through this and also talking a little bit more detail. There are although it's pretty straightforward, and if you've ever set up a Masternode before, this will be very sort of second nature to you, but if you haven't, there are a few bits that you might be confused about, so I just want to sort of like talk through those in a little bit more detail as we go on. So if you're interested in getting going, what you first need to do is download the wallet, let that sync on your local machine, and also make sure you have just over 50,000 coins. It's 50,000 coins for the Masternode, but I always grab one or two more because often when you're withdrawing from exchanges, they will take a fraction of a coin as a withdrawal fee. So I always move a few more over. The other thing I always think it's useful to have when you're setting up Masternodes is a text file. So I'll just drag that in here. So just a simple text file, and these are basically all the little bits of information that we will use to set it up going along. So as you can see here, I've got IP and password. This is for the VPS address. This is our Masternode address, gen key and outputs, and I'll talk through these as we get to them, but I always find it's easier to have them all just copy and pasted into a text file, and then you can copy and paste them back and forth when you need them. So anyway, let's jump over to my Windows machine where I have the wallet. So this is my main staking machine. You can see here, this is what the wallet looks like. I think it's a little bit kind of garish, but it's very much like any other kind of QT wallet. This is just the Windows 64-bit wallet. So I've downloaded that, I've let it sync, and then there's a few things you should always do with any new wallet, is go to settings and encrypt the wallet. It'll ask you to put in a password a couple of times, then it'll shut it down, and then when you open it up, whenever you need to do anything like sending coins or starting Masternodes or anything like that, you'll have to input your passphrase. The second thing we need to do very quickly is to set up a new address purely for our Masternode. So if you go to File and Receiving Addresses, and then you can just click New, call it something relevant. So I've called mine MN1, so that stands for Masternode 1, and it's set up this address. And this is the address where we'll send the exact amount of 50,000 to in order to set up our Masternode. Once you've done that, back up your wallet. So go to File and Backup Wallet, and it will you can download that, then store it somewhere safe. Store it on a USB in a bank vault or in a safe somewhere safe. Anyway, always make sure that whenever you make changes to your wallet, set up new addresses and stuff like that, always take a fresh backup and make sure you've got those stored offsite somewhere securely. So I'm going to presume at this point that you've got your wallet, you've downloaded it, you've allowed it to sync. As you can see here, the little tick, so synchronization finished, and you've got within whatever wallet or whatever address was initially set up, you've got more than 50,000. So as you can see here, I had a few thousand or 1,300 odd from, I think this was from an airdrop on my node pool, and then I bought the remaining coins yesterday. Actually, they came through. I was waiting for the price I wanted. The first chunk came through, and then I download them into the wallet, and then actually between receiving those at about 8 o'clock and then the second batch at midnight, I actually received a stake. So if you do leave your wallet open for staking, you will receive stakes if you don't want to set up a Masternode. But during this process, make sure you don't have the wallet unlocked for staking. It would be very unlucky, but you could have a situation where you're trying to send the stuff across and a stake comes in, which messes things up. So before we add the Masternode config file, we want to make sure that those coins don't stake or anything like that. So make sure the wallet's kind of locked, and then what we need to do is send basically 50,000 coins exactly to this address. So if we copy that address, and what I'm going to do is copy it into my local text file here, so just make a note of that for later. And then what we're going to do is click send. Now before you do that, if you go to settings and options and enable coin control features, most wallets have this, most QT wallets have this, and it allows you a little bit more information about the coins you're sending. So if we click send and then inputs, and if you don't have coin control features enabled, you won't see this inputs, but that basically allows you to select all the different coins on different kind of addresses. Now when we set up our masternode, you'll see the 50,000 in an address, and it will be locked, so you can't select it. So we'll just select all of those, and then we're going to send it to our address. Oh, sorry, here. It's the custom change it. So paste it here, pay to, that's our address, and we're going to send 50,000 exactly. There is a small transaction fee, so we'll click send. Then we'll need to put in our password. And then it'll ask to confirm. There'll be a small amount added as a fee, so we'll click yes. And then you see here it sent the transaction. If we go back to the overview, you'll see this transaction here, which will be pending until it goes through the network. If we go to transactions, you'll see that here. Now that's all we need to do initially on the local wallet. Now what we need to do now is go over to the VPS and set up a VPS for our masternode. So if we jump back over to here, I'm going to go to Vulture. This is my Vulture account. I do have a link. It's got an affiliate link below it, and a few people have actually signed up with that link. So thanks very, very much for those who have done that. I think if you sign up through a link, you get, I think you get $10 off your first month's kind of cost, and I get $10 as well, something like that. But yeah, if you haven't got a Vulture account and you're looking to set one up, please use my affiliate link. That would be fantastic. And you can see here, this is all my masternodes that are in my masternode experiment. So we just click deploy new server, and then you can select basically wherever you want. Occasionally you'll select one, so I'm going to select London, which is close to where I am, and then this is very important, select Ubuntu and then 16.04. Now that version isn't actually in the guide here that we're kind of following, but basically you just need to make sure you've got the 1 gig one selected. So once we've selected that, you can see we're going to go for the 1 gig, so it's $5 a month, 25 gig SSD, 1 gig of memory, 1 CPU. That's fine. And then if we scroll down, enable IP version 6, I always do that, and then we'll call it what we want. So this will be Vulcano _ Masternode _1, and then we'll just click deploy now, and basically that will show up in your list here, and it'll show up as installing. Now you need to wait a few minutes, and after a few minutes it will show up that it's installed. It can, after it's installed, take a couple of minutes just to complete everything. So if you are waiting for it to kind of install and you grab the IP address and password straight away and you can't log in, just give it another minute or two. So once it installs, we'll then grab the IP address and the password, and then we'll get going with the installation. So after 3 or 4 minutes, it will show up as running status rather than installing. If we then click on it, we'll then get an IP address. So we're going to copy that IP address into our local text file. That's the little text file we had here. Now I'm going to keep this off screen from now on because it's going to have some sensitive information, but then we're going to copy over the password. So just click there to copy the password over, copy that into your local little text file just so you've got that to hand. And as you see here, just as I mentioned before, your server may still be finishing installing and booting up during the first few minutes of activation. If server does not ping, you can view the console to monitor progress. But we're done now. By the time we get back to this, it will be installed, and then we shouldn't have any other problems. So we can log out of Vulture, and then let's have a little look back at the guide here. So if we jump back over to the team viewer, so let's jump over to the wallet. Now you'll see now if we go to transactions, it's now on, how many transactions is it? 4 of 6 recommended transactions. Now when you're sending these payments yourself, it always recommends, and every masternode guide I've seen recommends 15. So wait for 15 confirmations until you then run the next couple of commands. So what I'm going to do is just pause the video very briefly. I'll wait for this to get to 15 confirmations. You can check that in your transaction tab. Just scroll over or just mouse over the little tick, and then once that gets to 15 confirmations, we can run the next couple of commands. So now we can see, if we mouse over the tick. We've got 16 confirmations, so we're good to go to the next stage. And what we need to do is go to Tools and Debug Console, and you'll see here in the instructions we need to run a couple of commands. So masternode key gen, or gen key rather, and then masternode output. So we'll go through those now. So literally just type those into the bottom, masternode gen key, and you'll get a long string number here. Copy that into your text file, and then we'll run the next command, which is masternode outputs. Now this will generate two different lines. One will be a TX hash, which will be a long string. Ignore the quotation marks either side. Just copy the long string in between, and then there'll be an output IDX, which will be probably 0 or 1 or 2. So make a note of that as well. These are different things that will need to be inputted differently into your masternode config file. So we can close that down now, and then the next thing we need to do is set up our masternode config. So we go to Tools, Open Masternode configuration file. Now if you can't find it there, it's actually, or if you need to edit it and that doesn't work, you can actually find it here in your app data folder. So in app data, Roman Vulcano core, you can find those two files there as well, masternode config and Vulcano config. But most new wallets allow you to edit directly from the wallet and find them, which is quite nice. So what we will need to do is basically set up a string like this, which is our masternode configuration, and it's done in this kind of format. So what we'll do is just copy that into the line below. So basically, if it has this little hash, it means it's not going to be read by the computer. So we're going to call ours MN1. That's going to be our masternode name. Then we've got the IP address there, colon, and then the port number. So that IP address is the IP address of our VPS. So we copied that earlier into our little text file, so we'll just copy that back over, paste that over. So leave this, so the colon 62543, that's the port number that's used by the Vulcano Masternode, so leave that as it is. And then this first number here, so this first long string is the gen key we just generated. The second one is the first part of the transaction outputs, and then this third one is just our single digit. So there needs to be a space between all of these different things. So MN1, a space, your IP and port number, then a space, the gen key, space, first part of your transaction outputs, another space, and then the last one, which will probably be 0, 1, or 2. So what I'm going to do is pause the video. I'll just copy my actual figures over here. I don't want you to see those, obviously, so I'll just copy those over, and then you can just save that file and stop it. So I copied those bits into the masternode configuration file, and then I saved that. So what we need to do now is exit the wallet and open it up again. So we've closed that down, make sure it's completely closed, and then we'll open it up again. Just take a few seconds to open up. I'll just pause the video very briefly, and when it's open, I'll come back. Oh, actually, it's a little bit quicker than I thought, so I'll just carry on. So anyway, it will open up again. Any blocks that have come in will sync at the bottom, and then you'll get these additional data masternode bits and bobs. Now, if we go to the masternode tab here, we will now see this is the information basically that we added into our masternode.conf file. So you can see there, that should be the IP address with the port number that we just added in. That's the alias, so that's the name that we put at the beginning of the line, and you'll see that it's missing. So what we need to do now is go back to our VPS, and we need to set that up. So in order to set up the actual VPS and do the configuration on the VPS, we need to connect to it via an SSH client. Now, if you are on Windows, I would recommend PuTTY. So this is what PuTTY looks like. You can get it from putty.org, download it. It's available for most systems, and what you'll do is just put your IP address in there, call it something like Vulcano Masternode, click save, and then it'll appear here, and then when you want to go back to it, just double click it, it'll open up. You'll put your password in. If you, however, are on Mac, you can just use terminal. So what we can do is just type the following command in, so SSH and then root and then @ and the IP address, and then we have to type yes, so we want it to connect, and then we'll grab our password from the VPS that we also put in earlier, paste that in, hit return. Now we've now logged into the VPS. VPS is just plain VPS that we just set up. So what we will do first, apt get update, we'll run two commands basically to make sure that everything on the server is just up to date. And this is basically whatever I do whenever I set up a new VPS. So apt-get space update, and that will grab all the latest packages, and then we'll do the same thing but upgrade. So apt-get space upgrade. If you hit the up arrow, it will go to the previous command. So if you've got similar commands, you can just edit those. We'll hit return. It will ask us if we want to use the additional space for some of these packages, and then it will go through and install those. Now I'll pause the video very briefly while it runs through and does that. Probably only take about a minute or so. Okay, so that just took a couple of minutes to run. Once you go back to the command prompt, you can then crack on with the next command. So basically, we'll just copy this command from the guide. So this is basically just an installation script. So we can copy that into a terminal or putty, hit return, and it will start running. So basically, you'll see here, I'll leave this running so you can see what happens, but it will basically kind of come out with various bits and pieces. So it will ask you for various information. So server IP address, we'll put in our server IP address, then our Masternode private key. So this is the gen key that we put in earlier. So that's the Masternode gen key. It's also called the private key. So we'll paste that in and hit return. Would you like to use Tor? We're not going to use Tor, so hit N, and then it will basically go away and it will do all the installation for you. So basically, first of all, it installs the dependencies. It'll install the Bitcoin wallet or the Vulcano local wallet, and then it will download the blockchain and sync. Now this can take quite a while. It probably a good idea to basically to go away and have a cup of tea, have a glass of wine, whatever. Leave it for 10 minutes, come back, see how it's kind of going. But basically we need this to reach the same block height. So this is our remote wallet. So this needs to find and download the entire blockchain, just like we have here. So this is our local wallet, and if you scroll over the tick here, you can see we're on block 142,507. So our remote a remote wallet will also need to kind of download and get to that stage. So I will let this kind of run. I'll pause the video and then I'll come back to it once it's finished running. So after about 3 or 4 minutes after installing all the kind of packages, and I noticed it also downloaded a bootstrap of the blockchain. So that's really good. So it's not syncing the blockchain from scratch. It downloaded the bootstrap of the blockchain and is just going and validating those blocks, I presume. But after about 5 minutes, you'll get to this screen. So it says your Masternode is syncing. Please wait for this process to finish. This can take up to a few hours. Do not close this window. So you can see here the current block is just over 11,000, and we have to reach what was it, 142,000, something like that. So what I would do is again pause the video. Apologies for all these pauses. If you're actually doing this yourself, you can go away and do something, but make sure you leave the window open. Make sure your machine doesn't go into standby or anything like that, and close the connection. But let it sync. It will probably just take a few minutes. It says this can take up to a few hours, but because it downloaded the bootstrap of the blockchain as part of the process, should only take maybe 5 minutes, something like that. So I'll come back when this has finished running. So that actually did take a bit longer than I expected. The first sort of 50,000 blocks were pretty quick, and then it does slow down dramatically. So it probably took about 3/4 an hour, maybe towards an hour to get going. So once this is run and you get to this stage, basically what you need to do is go back to the local wallet and start the Masternode. So if we jump back to our local wallet, click on the Masternodes tab, then we'll just highlight the one we want and click Start Alias. Are you sure you want to start Masternode N1? Yes. It will then ask for the password, so just type in your password, click OK, and then we should see this, which is basically successfully started Masternode. It will then change from missing to enabled. There won't be anything in the active time yet, but that will start updating after a short while. And then if we jump back to the terminal, we can just hit enter. after we've done that, and it will come up with the following. So Masternode successfully started. So this is our remote Masternode has now been successfully started. That is a status 4, and the Masternode setup has been completed. Now there are some handy, if we scroll to the bottom of the page here, there are some handy commands here, so you can have a look at the status of your Masternode. You can use the get info, stuff like that. So we could copy that into our terminal and just see the following things. So if you ever do need to kind of log in, check that everything's running, anything like that, you can use these commands here to start and stop the remote service, restart the Masternode and stuff like that. Now if you do have issues with it, if you get stuck, what's quite nice about this script is there's another 2 scripts here which you can use to basically refresh your node. So you see this one here, refreshing node. So if you get stuck on a kind of block, say you've had a network connection issue or something like that, it's refreshed, or something's it's crashing or something like that, you can then run this command. So literally you just log back into terminal, copy that into here and let that run, and you don't need to do anything else. It will just run to the end and reboot your Masternode for you. So that's all you should really need to do. So now our Masternode is up and running. Give this an hour or two, just check that this has updated to a bit of a kind of a larger kind of number. So after a kind of while, sometimes it can take an hour or so to start kind of updating and syncing properly. The other thing I just wanted to mention is if you go to the Send tab, once you've set up your Masternode with the Masternode conf file, if you go to inputs, you'll see now that the 50,000 that we sent to that address, that's our MN1 Masternode 1 address, is now locked. You'll see this little padlock icon, and it's quite good because it means that if you're trying to send coins to someone else, even if you select them all, it won't select. As you can see there, you can't select these 50,000. So those 50,000 are now locked, which means you can't accidentally send them, you know, by accident, thereby breaking your Masternode. If you do ever need to, if you want to break your Masternode, what you need to do is go back to the Masternode configuration file and just highlight, just comment this out or delete this line. And then once you've done that and reopened your wallet, those 50,000 coins will be available to spend again. But obviously if you do that, you will break your Masternode. Anyway, apologies that this video has been slightly longer than most. I've got into quite some detail, specifically really for beginners. If you've set up Masternodes before, a lot of it will be superfluous, but I just wanted to make sure, a few people have asked me to do a Masternode setup video. I just wanted to make sure that I kind of like dotted the I's and kind of crossed the T's of all the little bits and pieces that maybe aren't written down in the guide. So anyway, that's it for today. Thanks very much for watching. If you're interested in Masternodes and staking coins, please consider subscribing to the channel. I do a lot of stuff on Masternodes and staking. Give me a thumbs up, that would be great. Help other people find the guide. Apart from that, thanks very much for watching again. Have a great day. Bye bye.